Hi, my name is Natalie and I practice and teach tantric meditations and healing. And I've been doing it for the past 8 years. And I work private sessions. I do them with men and women and couples. And I had a man over the other day who was still obsessed about his ex-wife. Although they had a terrible marriage and they were fighting all the time. She was a bit of a narcissist. He even told me that at one point she started bringing men to their house and they slept together in the living room while he was in the bedroom. And she was doing like every narcissistic trick in the book to this guy until he finally divorced her. But he was still obsessed about her and he couldn't get over it. And I think one of the reasons was that they had really good sex. And besides the fact that they had really good sex, she was actually the only woman that he ever slept with. So because she was the only woman he ever slept with, and that's the only vision he has in his brain, the only experience, the only memories that he has of sex are with her, and because the sex was also very good, he couldn't release her, he couldn't stop thinking about her, he couldn't cut the relationship clean and actually find a good, healthy relationship with another woman who would actually love him and appreciate him and not just try and abuse him all the time. I'm not saying that it's the women who always abuse the men. Men can abuse women. We all know this. But I am talking today about, men who find themselves attached to women that they've been with, although and despite the fact that these relationships weren't healthy relationships, they are still obsessed about them. And I can tell you that I, as a woman, have also been obsessed about men. I think it was actually one of the main reasons I found Tantra, because I was doing a lot of healing work and emotional work, but I was aware of the fact that a lot of my blockages were with men and with, toxic relationships, that many of the times they were toxic because of me. Because I had a lot of pain that I didn't deal with and I didn't treat and I didn't heal. And so, but some of the times the toxic relationships were from the other side and I would still be obsessed about them. And even like the ex-boyfriend that I had, we were together for 5 years. We lived together in London and, we had amazing sex. We actually started out as fuck buddies and we had sex for about 2 years before we actually became a couple. And it was a bad relationship in like every term. I wasn't me. I enmeshed myself in him and in his life because enmeshment is one of my pain, childhood pain triggers, whatever patterns. Anyway, it was a really bad relationship, but the sex was very good. And I think a lot of the times in toxic relationships, there is a very good sexual interaction and relationship, which is one of the reasons it's very hard for us to leave that relationship because of the sex. And so even like after he broke up with me and I went through all this depression and dark night of the soul and I went through this rebirth without even being spiritual at that time, I would still go back and have sex with him. I want to say because the sex was really good, but it was also because I always hoped that if he remembered how good the sex was with me, then he'll want to be together again, and that never happened. But that was one of the things that I hoped for, and one of the ways that I used sex with men was to kind of draw them in and make them mine and feel secure, because I had a tangled attachment style. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like the anxious with the other type. It's the two types of bad attachment styles. Well, I have both of them, and there's a name for that. And, I did all these things with sex and men, which I don't do anymore. But today I help people who are in very similar situations. So this guy is still sleeping with this woman, although she's cray-cray and, very toxic. And I get it because it's hard to find good sex. And when you have that sexual relations with someone, it's very hard to give it up. But the question is, what is the price that we're paying for this amazing sex And I think another good question is the sex really that amazing? Or is it just my pain body that's attracted to this person because I know that after the sex I'm going to feel pain again, and it's a good channel for me to feel that pain. You know, the demon of pain wants to have more and more pain energy, so it's going to create more and more situations in our life where we experience the pain. Is that the reason we go back to the sex? And there are more questions. I mean, if the sex is so good, how is our relationship so toxic? That's interesting. That's something interesting, because from what I know now, after I have healed myself, is that good sex comes from a good relationship. You respect each other, you love each other, you admire each other. And from those emotions, you have amazing sexual relations. So is that sex, the good sex in the toxic relationships, is it really that good? Or is it just the pain that I'm addicted to? And because some people have this assumption, you know, if the sex is good, then the relationship is supposed to work out. But the sex can be good for the wrong reasons. And we want to make sure that the sex is good for the good reasons, for the right reasons. And that it comes from a place of mutual respect and admiration and love and, you know, emotional abundance and maturity. And, you know, that it comes from a good and healthy place, because when we're good, when we're healthy, when we love ourselves, when we're healed as much as we can be, because it's always an ongoing process. But as we start to heal ourselves, I think that we're drawn to more healthier relationships. And suddenly, that's what happened to me. I kind of look back at those toxic relationships and I'm like, what the fuck? What was I doing there? Like, why was I there? Why? What? But it's because I'm not healed. Not close to being healed, but I'm more healed than I was back then, and suddenly these toxic relationships don't seem like anything attractive to me. And I'm looking for like the good, positive, loving connection that I can feel safe as a woman, safe enough to open up, safe enough to enjoy the sexual relations without feeling abandoned or rejected, or, you know, all the pain that we have. So I think it's an interesting point to look at. You know, was I in a toxic relationship? Was the sex really good? Is that the reason that I find it very hard to let go of that toxic relationship? Was the sex actually very good? And I would suggest that you go and have good sex with someone else and then compare it to the sex that you had when you were in the toxic relationship. And then maybe you'll just see for yourself that actually, you know, the sex wasn't that good. It was just my pain that was bringing me back every time. And we can't like be angry at ourselves for that. We have pain. It's not our fault. We weren't, you know, in childhood we were just children. It's not our fault that we have that pain. We can be aware of the pain and take responsibility and accountability for our pain, and then start working towards being someone who doesn't have that pain anymore. But it's not our fault that we have it. I think a lot of the times people see their pain and they see these toxic relationships and then they blame themselves and they're angry at themselves and they think that they're these, you know, really bad people, and then they don't get into relationships anymore. And I was a bit like that. And I think we need a lot of compassion when we're doing this work. We need to be compassionate to the inner child, to the child that we were. Yes, compassionate to our parents, but also mainly compassionate to ourselves and to the pain that we have. And the fact that we're aware of that pain doesn't mean that that pain is going to go away. And we need to start doing the work with that pain, which is mainly in meditation, just sitting with it and being okay with it. You know, imagining our inner child, hugging them, loving them, giving them that loving, mature adults that they never had when they were children, doing that for them now in meditation when we go back and we imagine these things. But it's not our fault that we have that pain. And I think a lot of people do think it's their fault. And then even when they're aware of the pain that they have, they ignore it and they keep on going, because if they have to actually stop and see the pain, they're going to have to be accountable for that pain, for everything they did with that pain, and that's too much. It was too much for me. It took me years to actually take responsibility for the things that I did from my pain, but also forgive myself because I am not the one who created that pain. So that's the kind of thing that I like to talk about and work with people in sessions, one-on-ones. and I thought that was an interesting topic today. I take a lot of the inspiration for my videos from the sessions that I have, mainly with men, but not only. I also work with women and I work with couples. So if you like this video, you can like and share and subscribe, and I will upload more in the future from the fascinating conversations that I have with people about their sex lives, and I share these conversations with you with a lot of insight that I have from the sessions, from a standpoint of let's heal ourselves around sexuality. Tantra is a good way to do that. Let's use some of the techniques and the methods and the ways of Tantra to heal ourselves, our relationships, our sexual relationships and lives and experiences, so that we can become happier people, whole people, connected people, and balanced people. So that's my channel, and that's me, and I will see you soon in my next video, and thanks for listening, and I hope that it helped a little bit. It definitely helped me, so thank you.